Welcome to the Candidates Forum for those candidates seeking election to the West Contra Costa Unified School District. Tonight's forum is being sponsored by the League of Women Voters, the West Contra Costa County Chapter, West County Chapter. So let's give them a round of applause for their sponsorship this evening. My name is Jeff Wright, and I will be your moderator this evening. Before we get started, I'd like to just establish a few ground rules and a little housekeeping. Those of you who may be present with cell phones, I'd ask that you please silence them or put them on vibrate. In the event that you need to make a call or converse with someone, I'd ask that you please step outside because we don't want to disrupt our candidates tonight. We have some pretty intense questions and we want them to have full concentration. To our candidates, to our panelists, those of you participating tonight, no questions to the audience, no reliance on electronic devices. Now each of you will have 2 minutes to present an opening statement, 1 minute to answer the questions that are presented to you, and 2 minutes for a closing statement at the end. Tonight I am pleased to have as our timer B. Roberson. B will be timing you in the manner outlined, so please pay close attention to the time, because guess what? When your time runs out, it's out. It's out. Now on the outside chance that someone should choose to speak over time, you'll be escorted off the platform, sent to a room, write a 5-page essay on why it's important to stay within the time limits. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we shall begin. Our coordinator tonight is none other than Joan Carpenter, present tonight with another League of Women Voters member, secretary if I'm not mistaken, Tyra Wright. So I'm going to start with our first question, and I'm going to start at my right. Ms. Calloway, the question. The achievement gap is often discussed as though it's a single phenomenon. In reality, there are many achievement gaps, including racial gaps, gender gaps, disability gaps, English learner gaps, and economic gaps. Gaps also exist between the West Contra Costa Unified School District students and the state, national. You're absolutely correct. I jumped the gun. I'm so eager to get going. Didn't even give you a chance to go with your opening statements. 2 minutes each. I'm going to start dead center. Mr. Tabora.
Thank you very much. Hello? 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 Okay. Well, okay. Well, once again, thank you very much for organizing this third Candidates Forum. My name is Carlos Taboada, and I have been a teacher and counselor in our district for more than 21 years. I can tell you that I have seen our district at its best and at its worst, and I know its weaknesses and I know its strengths. My campaign, Defend and Reform Public Education, now centers around 2 key themes. One, the one that the gentleman just hinted at, the achievement gap, the differential in achievement between student groups of different ethnicities and income. The other issue is the threat to the viability of our district posed by the unchecked expansion of charter schools. To the first point, the achievement gap. It is truly, if you examine the literature, an achievement/opportunity gap. And it is but a reflection of the class structure of the society that we live in. And the root causes of the achievement gap are cultural and they are social. And therefore they can be eliminated and drastically reduced with pedagogical, social, and educational measures. And one solution that our district has adopted and that I support wholeheartedly is the full-service community school. My emphasis, however, is not on labels, but on the reality. This full-service community school must be based on teacher autonomy and local control. Thank you very much, and I hope I can count on your vote this November 6th. Thank you.
Ms. Laura.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Consuelo Lara and I'm running for school board. I'm a retired teacher from this district. I've been retired for about 3 years. In this last 3 years, I have been involved in the community. I had the good fortune to go to college with Genoveva Calloway, who is the mayor of San Pablo. So I would see her once in a while as I was teaching, and we just kind of waved to each other. Once I told her I was retiring, that was it. She pulled me into the community. She gave me assignments. I took over some networking groups, and I got to know the community in a way I never knew. Being here in the district for 16 years, I taught at Richmond, Helms, first Crespi, then Helms, went to Richmond High, came back to Helms. When they opened the brand new school, I never taught in a brand new school before, taught there for 5 more years, and then I retired. I didn't really have any plans other than I knew I was going to retire in this district, because there's nowhere else on earth where I can walk around in the city, hear my name, Miss Lara, turn around, and there's a little family, little kids, and I get a feeling of, this is my home, I have roots here, this is where I'm going to stay. And I just could tell you a bunch of stories like that of meeting my students and the stories that they have, what they remember. So it's very gratifying. When I was working here in the district, I was very much a teacher leader. I was the department chair, I was a coach, I was a trainer for about 8 years for ELD. I worked as a resource teacher and on the school site council, and I was also a union rep. I know what it takes to get a team to get together and work collaboratively. Thank you.
Ms. Cronenberg.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Wright, for being here, and thank you to all of my colleagues and candidates up here. This is a very, very good group that we have to choose from in this election. I'm Madeline Cronenberg. I've been on the school board since 2006. I've been in this school district since the mid-'80s when my children entered. And I brought my oldest daughter in as a kindergartner. I joined the PTA then. I became a PTA leader. I was here during the most challenging times of all, when we went through the bankruptcy and had to do the major cutbacks that were so difficult. And I stepped up and really became a parent leader at that time. My kids are 16 years apart, so I was a parent leader in 3 different levels of school for the entire time. Well, I had one in the university while I had somebody in preschool. I was also a teacher. I won the State Teaching Excellence Award for Adult Education early in the early 2000s, and had a very active teaching career in Hayward for 30 years. I ran for the school board because it was really important to me that the children in this district are successful. And I wanted to be a collaborative member of a team that would move things forward for all of our children. I'm very, very interested in keeping our movement and our success going. We've had great success continuing to invest in our teachers, and I hope we're able to continue to do that. I also want us to be able to grow our teachers and create our own teaching academy, education academy, so we don't have to fight the shortage, and we don't have to be the district that has turnover and doesn't keep their teachers.
Mr. Juan.
Hello. So, good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Patricio DeJeJean, and I'm running for school board because I believe that we can do better here at the district. I believe that we can be evolved to a district where families are looking to move into to go to school rather than, once they're here, really look for different alternatives for their students and better alternatives. I will bring to the school board valuable experiences and perspectives with a focus on what matters most: students, families, and what happens in the classroom. So I'm a father with 2 girls in public schools. They attend Washington Elementary School in Point Richmond. So I know what it's like to be a parent currently in the district. I'm also a Latino immigrant y vine a los Estados Unidos cuando tenía 7 años hablando nada de inglés. I came to this country, my family came here when I was 7 years old, speaking no English. And thanks in large part to public school education, my sister, my brother and I learned to read, and we were also able to be successful academically, attend UC Berkeley, attend UC San Diego for graduate school. And then I dedicated my career to education. I've taught in urban, high-poverty elementary and middle school, and dealt with and supported families that face many of the same challenges and unfortunately some of the same trauma that too many of our West Contra Costa students face. So I know what it's like to support many of our families in school. And then I continued to dedicate my career to education. I work as a national education leader focused on teaching and learning and supporting school district superintendents and school leaders transform their schools and their districts. So I want to bring that expertise to the school board. So with those perspectives, as a father with 2 girls in public schools, as a former teacher, as an education leader, and as a Latino immigrant, I want to really help move our district forward. Thank you.
Ms. Hernandez-Jarvis.
My name is Stephanie, and I'm here as a public school teacher running for school board because I really believe that we need to have a current leader on our board that has actual concrete knowledge on what our students are going through and what our teachers need in the classroom at this moment. I come here as a public school teacher, as a mother of a little girl who's going to be in this district for many years to come. I come here as a teacher who has first-hand knowledge about what our kids and our teachers need to stay at our schools. I really want to improve our teacher retention rates, and I think we need to support our teachers and make them feel valued and welcome to stay in the profession and in the district. We need to have ongoing support, not just for new teachers, but for third year, fourth year, fifth, sixth, and 7th year teachers. We need to show that we want to reduce our class sizes so that we don't overwhelm our teachers, especially in ECE and kindergarten. We need to have enough adults with experience and expertise helping our kids. We need to have preventative strategies early on in elementary schools, like social-emotional learning curriculum, not wait until they get to high school and then have to deal having reactionary measures to behavior. We need to have preventative strategies and incorporate restorative practices into our discipline plan so that we teach kids how to regulate their behavior with positive structures in place. I'm also an immigrant in first-generation college and high school graduate. My parents brought me here from Ensenada, Baja California when I was 10, and I was an English learner. Having teachers who looked like me, who could relate to me, who taught me English, really helped me to pave the way for my daughter, for my sister, for my family to really be passionate about education. And I'm here as an educator, as someone who has experience teaching and wants to really make a change in our schools. I believe we have a great school district, and we need to have people who care about the kids and families and prioritize them above everything else. Thank you so much for being here today.
Ms. Block.
Thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Liz Block, and I'm running for my 2nd term on the Board of Education. I hope by the end of the evening you'll see why I deserve a 2nd term on the board. During my first 4 years in office, I pushed for and we achieved 15% raises for many of our teaching and other staff. We put more dollars towards improving teaching and learning. I headed a committee that brought spending controls to our $1.6 billion bond project, and our bond program rather. And we began, with my encouragement, an ambitious project to improve our culture and climate in our schools and to make sure that we're disciplining our students fairly. But we still have far more to do. In my second term, I will continue to be sure that we use metrics to improve student learning, bring more support to our teachers, and make sure we treat all students with fairness and respect. As a leader who represents a new direction for West Contra Costa Public Schools, my priorities have always been putting students first, equipping our students for success in the 21st century, and building support for our teachers. I hope you'll consider voting for me. Thank you.
Ms. Calloway.
Good evening. I'm Vanessa Calloway, born and raised here in Richmond, California. Attended schools here in Richmond from elementary and high school. And as my mom was a teen parent, and so hearing her advocate for me and my siblings actually sparked something within me to want to advocate for those within our community. So from a young age in elementary school, going into the special ed class and helping out on recess, and up until my adult life, having my own family daycare, as well as being an unclassified employee here in West Contra Costa Unified School District, working at here at Lavonya DeJeJean for 6 years for the after-school program, as well as Perry's Elementary, implementing the dental clinic that's currently there now, as well as being the site supervisor for the Rosie's Girls program that help middle school young ladies learn non-traditional jobs. And so through my years of working, I've been working with youth and young adults for over 20 years now, and my experience say that we need to help build relationships. Once you build relationships, you can understand where the need is, and then the focus can then be on the need, and we can focus on the achievement gap. I want to help level the playing field so that all our students within our district receive a quality education regardless of their economic status, regardless of their culture and their background. I believe they all, and I believe we have the potential with our teachers to give them just that, the quality education that they so deserve. But we have to start with building relationships with their families and with the communities and understand where they're coming from and how they learn. So in doing that, giving teachers more of a toolbox to pull from so that they can pull in that toolbox what is necessary for that necessary child. Because as we know, education isn't cookie cut. Everyone learns different, and our teachers need to be equipped to handle such situations. Thank you.
Ms. Grimsley.
Good evening. My name is Tiffany Grimsley, and I am a Bay Area native, a second-generation Bay Area native. I grew up in El Cerrito and attended schools in El Cerrito and Richmond, and I am now the parent of 3 children who have matriculated within the district, and the youngest of which is in middle school here in West Contra Costa Unified School District, formerly Richmond Unified School District, which is where I graduated from. I attended the University of California at Santa Barbara, where I studied communication studies and Black studies, and it was there that I really got my first opportunity to work in education as a student employee in the Office of Relations with Schools. There, I got my first opportunity to do outreach and recruitment for prospective students, which eventually led me to the Haas School of Business, where I worked for over 8 years during my more than 15 years at the University of California, Berkeley. In that role as Assistant Director for MBA Admissions at the Haas School of Business, I really got to learn a lot about the process of preparing someone for a college education and then a graduate school education. And I did some work in developing a pipeline to the university in spite of the challenges of Proposition 209, which took away our ability to specifically ask questions regarding gender or ethnicity in our application process. Since then, I have been an active parent in the West Contra Costa Unified School District, and I have volunteered as a parent volunteer. I've been employed by the district as a yard supervisor and instructional aide. I've sat on the school site committee at my son's school, and I'm just really committed and invested in this community, community that I grew up in, to build a better educational system so that all of our students have the opportunity to choose to go to college.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Gonzalez, and sometime in 1954, Ruth Gonzalez decided, along with Andrew Gonzalez, her husband, that she would not raise another child in Jones County, Mississippi in the 50s. And she moved her family from there to San Francisco, California, where I was born at 1001 Potrero Avenue in the Mission District and raised in the People's Republic of San Francisco, specifically the province of Bayview Hunters Point. But it was that experience of seeking access to justice that was embedded in me, even in vitro, that brings me here tonight. I was an average to slightly below average classroom teacher. I was a very good school principal, but I think I was an exceptional educational researcher that helped close the achievement gap and raise achievement scores throughout the state of California in over 100 schools in 25 school districts in the last 12 years. Most recently, I've been working supporting retention of new teachers here in this district for the last 4 years and have been a volunteer baseball coach at various programs at various public schools in this district. I am married, which means I know how to take directions well. And I have 4 children and a grandson, and it's my desire to do for this district what my work has done for other school districts. We can absolutely turn this district around. It was said best by a 3rd grade teacher at Lake Elementary School when I asked her, what is it we need in this district? And she said, well, it's like we have this puzzle, and we've got all the pieces, but we don't have a picture of what these pieces should look like. It's my desire to provide that picture through my candidacy as well as my position on the board.
Mr. Caro.
Good evening. Good evening. Hi, my name is Anthony Caro, and I'm running because I think we can do better. We can do better for our black and brown students. We can do better for our special needs students. We can do better for our teachers especially. Now, I have opinions on many issues, but there's 3 of them that I'm focusing on in this campaign. Is that 1, we provide higher supports and resources for our teachers and our students. Now, what that means is giving the teachers the tools that they need to get the job done. And at the same time, we need to provide the right interventions for each individual student, because each of them have their own individual needs that they need to succeed. Second, we need drastically to improve our community engagement and our community involvement. The district does a really poor job of engaging with parents, and the evidence of that is a lot of parents don't even know what's going on in the schools that their students are in. And I think that if we really want our students to succeed, we parents and we community members need to be on board with what's going on. And then finally, we need to ensure that all of our students are college and career ready. It's not enough to just teach students math, English, science anymore. We need to make sure that they have the right training and the right skills so that once they get their high school diploma from this district, they're ready for the next step. To me, it's a shame that you can actually get a high school diploma and not qualify to go to college. The reason for that is because our standards do not match up with the A through G requirements. Let's say your student doesn't want to go to college, or let's say they want to go straight to the workforce. We need to ensure that we have internships and jobs lined up for them so that way they're prepared for that next step. So I'm running on these 3 things, and I'm running because I feel that I'm a good listener. For the past few years, I've been a community organizer in this district, meaning that I've listened to the needs of students, parents, and teachers and organized on those needs. The reason why I'm running this is because I don't see a community organizer on this school board. I don't see somebody that's actively listening to parents and actively listening to students and asking them what they feel they need. You have 3 options in this election. Now, I may not have the 20 years experience that some of my colleagues up here do, but what I do have is experience listening, experience organizing, and experience in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you all for presenting your opening statements. Now, at this point in the forum, you'll have 1 minute to respond to the questions that are posed to you. So, Ms. Calloway, I'm going to go back to you with this first question. The achievement gap is often discussed as though it's a single phenomenon. In reality, there are many achievement gaps, including racial gaps, gender gaps, disability gaps, English learner gaps, and economic gaps. Gaps also exist between the West Contra Costa Unified School District students and the state, national, and country averages. Which achievement gap should the district prioritize, and what resources will be required? So again, which achievement gap should the district prioritize, and what resources will be required?
Wow, what a loaded question. It's so unfair because they're all important. One of the achievement gaps would be our literacy. And one of the ways that I believe that we can target and focus on this is with universal preschool and the LCFF funding, community schools competency, and then the implicit bias training for all classroom personnel. That piece of it, I believe, would also address the racial achievement, the racial gap. Also, so you want just one, but I can't just give you one, because with our special ed, I see you, B. With our special ed, we have 4,000 students that have IEPs within our district, right? And so we only have 32,000 students, so we need to address those as well. So the top two, I would say, would be our literacy achievement gap as well as our special education gaps. There are some things that can be taken a look at right away in those and other methods, amending some of the IEPs, and my time is up.
Ms. Block.
Well, as you so succinctly put, we have many gaps. The one gap that I believe is the most important is the fairness gap. The fairness gap. Every child needs what he or she deserves to do better in school, but it's not always the same amount for everyone. And that's why it's not fair. It's not fair because a lot of kids come to school with a lot more than others. So what we need to do is make our system fair to all by giving our students what they need to improve and learn. Otherwise, we're just messing around with different kinds of gaps that aren't really going to solve our main problem, which is an unfair educational system and an unfair society. We've got a lot of work to do.
Ms. Grimsley.
As a board member, one of the things I hope to do is be a conduit between our community and the board. I want to build communication and collaborative working between our community members, parents, guardians, concerned citizens, and our board, as well as with our teachers and our administrators in the schools. That said, I think my voice and my opinion matters little. I think it's the voice of the community that matters most. And what I'd like to do as a member of the board is look to our teachers, look to our families, and find out where their needs are the greatest, and then bring that and make a decision regarding that in terms of our achievement gaps. And we do have many achievement gaps, and I've had the opportunity firsthand to know about the racial gaps. I've had firsthand the opportunity to work with special needs students and see the struggles of those families. So choosing one is an ultimate challenge.
Ms. Hernandez-Jarvis.
I wish we could prioritize all of these gaps with the budget that we have. But I think that if we really want to have a school culture that promotes learning and safety, we need to retain teachers. Without teachers, we won't have a school culture that is positive and conducive to learning. Teacher burnout is real, and how can we address it if we are not having the supports or the resources that teachers need? At my school, we really rely on volunteer work to be our playground supervisors, to be there for when a child gets hurt. Without nurses, without full-time psychologists at every site, we need to have teachers who are wearing multiple hats at the moment, but who are supported and feel valued at the schools. If we don't have teachers who stay over time, we have schools that have turnover and don't have a positive school culture with people working with each other. So we need to strengthen our teacher induction program, continue to support it, and have an ongoing peer-to-peer teacher support program in our district. Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez.
We have a system that's broken. That's why there's so many gaps. It's not the demographic groups that are broken, it's the system that is broken. Today is World Health Day, and the focus today is the million or so children in Central Africa that are at risk for death because of malnutrition. As they are starving to death, they are experiencing a variety of diseases multiplied by the fact that they don't have nutrition. What we're suffering in America is not only a moral gap, but an educational gap based on a system that has not been adjusted to meet the needs of children that come to school with a variety of head starts as well as a variety of hindrances. We need to look at our instructional system, make improvements to it, and we will address all of the gaps all at once.
Thank you. Mr. DeJeJean?
Thank you for the question. I mean, unfortunately right now we have a system that we're failing our students and failing our families. When you look at the data, 30% of third graders are reading on grade level. So that means 70% of third graders are not. It's baseball playoff season, so batting 300 is okay in baseball, but it's not when we're talking about educating our students. So I think the biggest focus is our reading gap, because that really drives a lot of what happens in the future. If you're not reading at third grade, you're not reading at fourth grade, fifth grade, you're disengaged with every subject matter, and then you're on the road to discipline problems and failure. So I think the biggest gap that we need to do and the focus that we need to have is making sure that we're raising our reading scores early and often, and that means better supports for teachers, better intervention, so if some students are behind, we catch them up and catch them up quickly in order to address that gap. And a lot of the issues that we end up talking about start getting minimized when we have students reading.
Mr. Carr?
As previously said, there's a lot of gaps, but as a board member, I would prioritize the economic gap. And the reason for that is because I believe that there's a huge gap between the haves and the have-nots, and I don't want that to be a reason that one of our students does not succeed. During the afternoon, a few days ago, I met a mother, and she had a 4-year-old son, and I asked her, shouldn't he be in preschool? And then she told me that all of our preschools have already been filled up, and she can't afford to provide her own child care for him. And she looked at me and she said, I don't want my child to fail because I can't afford a good preschool program. And I just wonder how many other mothers are in that mother's position. If we really, really want to close the gap, we need to ensure that the students who go home and don't have the right resources have the resources here at our school. Maybe some of the students don't have parents that could really help them with their homework, then we need to be able to provide tutors for them here. Maybe some of the students don't have food to go to at home, and that distracts them from focusing on their homework because they're focusing on their empty stomachs. Then we need to provide nutritious meals in our schools. Maybe these students don't have access to internet or, thank you, economic gap.
Ms. Kreinberg?
I think it comes down to the opportunity gap. The opportunity gap includes everything. You've got folks that are unable to compete with each other because they don't have the same socioeconomic opportunity in the beginning of their lives, which really speaks to the importance of preschool. All of our children need to go to preschool. It's become an absolute mandatory thing, and I hope that the new governor makes sure that we have it. Beyond that, we need to address the gaps once our children start school, and we do that with community schools. All of our schools have the opportunity to provide additional resources and services for children and their families that need them. That will raise up their ability to be available to learn. Many of our children suffer from trauma. Their families are not able to handle the trauma without additional support from the school side, and that's something we really need to be able to give them.
Mr. DeBoer?
The roots of the achievement gap are cultural and they are social, and they can be remedied with pedagogical, educational reform, economic reform, social reform. That has been proven beyond the shadow of a doubt. The roots are not ethnical. And the problem can be solved by the correct implementation of the full-service community school. make each and every one of our schools a center to make every student have within enrichment activities, tutoring, study trips, all the way to high school with internships. We need to look after all our students, not only those that excel and go to Ivy League schools, but those that are homeless now, and there are many of them in our district. So the correct implementation of the full achievement,
Ms. Lavonya.
Hello. How about now? Okay. I think the most important gap we need to deal with is the economic gap. 70% of our students in this district are on free reduced lunch. And I don't know if you've ever looked at the chart, but it is very much poverty level. So that achievement gap is very serious. I also agree with many of my colleagues. You have to start with the health and welfare of the child. If they're hungry, if they're hurting, if they're emotionally hurting, also, those are things that they can't learn. So we need to take care of them and make sure that they have their basic needs met. Also, to look at the homeless students, families actually, the foster children, and provide for them and make sure that they are secure before we can even teach them.
Ms. Cuevas, which achievement gap should the district prioritize and what resources will be required?
You have 1 minute. Turn the mic on.
Can we start over? Perfect. Good evening, everybody. My name is Val Cuevas. I'm currently serving as your school board president. It's a pleasure to be here to ask for your vote tonight. I think that's an interesting question. I think that's the same kind of question when you would ask a parent, which one of your students do you like, which one of your kids do you like better? I think the issue is they all are important. Whatever is stopping a kid from learning, we need to figure out how to make sure we bridge those gaps and not choose. But like each of you know your kids, you know which ones of your kids need certain supports, what kinds of supports, what are the strategies to help them succeed. We have to become responsive like that in our schools. And the biggest detriment to that is funding and public will. That's the only thing that stops us. So I'm here to be a leader that's going to constantly beat that drum and say, we can do better. What can we have? How can we make it happen? And if we can bring astronauts home when they're stuck in space, we can give our kids what they need. Thank you.
Question number 2. 1 minute to respond. You could see your name a little better, Ms. Cuevas, if you had it on the table. You could see you a little better. Okay. We know that having a safe school environment is very important for the student and very important for the peace of mind of parents as well. This question. October is National Bullying Prevention Month. Both California and the West Contra Costa Unified School District have adopted model policies with respect to bullying. Yet, bullying remains a deep concern among parents and students alike. What role does the school board play in preventing and addressing bullying, particularly online and off campus? Mr. DeJeJean.
Thanks for the question. And bullying is a topic that, unfortunately we're dealing with around a regular basis at school, like you said, online and in person. The role of the school board to do that is to really have strong policies in place that schools can report what's happening and a mechanism in order to educate and prevent. A lot of what's happening from a behavior issue is lack of understanding, a lack of education and an ability to respond to it. So at my daughter's school, there's been reports of bullying as well, and this is a K-6 school in Point Richmond. And the best way to address it is really to have that conversation as a community, led by the principal, led by the district, in order to identify what the issues are and help really get...
With a young child still in the district, it's extremely important. As a board member, I think it's important to facilitate and foster strong, safe, and healthy school environments across the board. I think it's important for board members to engage with the school communities and not operate completely independent of them. I think we need to work to develop the relationships with school resource officers and our school communities so that they help facilitate a healthy and safe community on each of our schools, on each of our school campuses. And I know that isn't the case right now. Developing those relationships, and not just in the month of October, but throughout the entire school year, having a no tolerance to bullying throughout each of our schools throughout the district. I think that's our job.
Mr. Caro?
So I believe that the role of the school board is to make these schools the best schools that they can be. And that means eliminating bullying as best as we can. In my campaign, I've been doing research into what other school districts have done across the country on ways that we can, on things that we can do here. So I'm really surprised to hear that we're actually the model in California for addressing bullying, because I could tell you I know a lot of parents that would disagree with that. One of the things that we've looked at is that students, they're going through different hormonal changes, they're going through different developmental changes. So a lot of it's not that these children are bad people, it's just that they need to be trained in the right way. So one middle school in Los Angeles, what they do is once a month, for an hour, they go over different social skill trainings. They go over addressing bullying, they go over talking to friends, how to deal with breakups and things like that. Where in our school district right now can students learn these skills? Where in our school district right now can a student go to learn how to express their emotions? In kindergarten, it's a lot different than in 10th grade, so we need to make sure that we're really tailoring our bullying prevention trainings to the right audience. Thank you.
Ms. Lara?
Yes, I have an answer to your question. At Richmond High, there is a program called CIS, Communities in Schools. And in that program, they have groups like Familias Unidas, stand for free violence, families free of violence. They have Girls Inc., they have the Y Team, they have, what else? Community Violence Solutions. They have agencies that come in and that work with our students. But many times there's not enough facilities. The need is high, but the program is not well supported. They need more facilities. They have people that will come in and work, but they need room. So they need to be supported. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've got great programs. We need to beef them up with funding. So again, it comes down to money as usual.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you. I think there are two things that need to be done, actually three, and you've heard a couple of them already from my colleagues up here. Number one, we need to have more full-service schools, and in doing so, bring services to those schools that make those schools safer. Number two, we have to do a better job of engaging parents and having parents in the schools. I happen, as I said earlier, to mentor new teachers in this district, and bullying is the tip of the spear. There's a whole bunch of other things that go on prior to bullying that really make the schools feel unsafe and dangerous at times. Having more adults in the schools as volunteers to support teachers would be an incredible help. I know from firsthand knowledge that even our superintendent had in his mind the Safe Schools initiative that we're currently engaged in because of his initial reaction walking around the schools of this district. So I would support the accountability of the implementation of the Safe Schools initiative.
Ms. Cuevas. Thank you.
I once had a teacher, and what she did is there was a student that was being bullied in our class. We were in 3rd grade. And she knew what was happening, and what she did is she sent him out. And when she sent him out, she created a safe space for him, and she created real talk for us and said, this is wrong. What you're doing is wrong. He doesn't deserve that, and I will not tolerate it in my class. And the issue was it resonated with us because we had been taught it's not right to make other people feel bad, to not have empathy for who they are. And I think all the programs that we have, we need to keep doing it. All the intent that we have, we need to keep doing it. But we got to be models of reminding us that alienation, making folks feel other, that leads to bullying, it's not acceptable. It's just not. And we need to do better jobs as adults modeling that.
Thank you. Mr. Tabora.
Okay, how students treat each other is oftentimes a reflection of how they see themselves treated, either by the school, their parents, or society. I think that the key to eliminating the problem of bullying, and in general all the discipline problems associated with bullying, lies in having a rational disciplinary policy elaborated with the participation of students, parents, and community. Like we have heard, there are many community organizations already working in schools, but they just need our support, funding, and they need coordination. We need, among other specific things, student courts. We need restorative justice, and we need to put an end to humiliating discipline tasks, such as having students pick up trash as a punishment. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Block.
To begin, the school board needs to make everyone in the district know that we are serious about having a bully-free district. And we can start by modeling bully-free behavior on the board, both to each other and to people who come to our board meetings. We can also ask our teachers and our school staffs, are they really modeling bully-free behavior? Are they giving the new teachers the most difficult assignments? That sounds like bullying to me. Kids know when you're pulling one over on them. They can spot when you're not doing what you're asking them to do. So we have to come clean everywhere in this district, root out bullying behavior, and then we can start. No sooner.
Ms. Calloway.
I believe in building relationships and engaging the community, meeting the students, families, and the teachers by having forums and having the SROs also engaging those conversations and actually asking them what would help you. This is a touching situation for me, as I'm currently an after-school coordinator as well, and one of my 4th graders just recently attempted suicide at one of our schools, and it was due to bullying. And so conversations, the staff have to be trained on even how to talk to the parent when a situation as such takes place, and precautionary measures need to be put in place, which wasn't, unfortunately, for this particular child. And so communicating during forums, having special people come in and talk about the consequences of bullying, and it's so important to engage the students. I hear us saying the adults and the modeling, but our kids can teach us so much if we'll just listen.
Ms. Hernandez-Jarvis.
Concrete action steps that we can take to eliminate bullying in our schools is to implement a systemic social-emotional learning curriculum. We can use Second Step, we can use Toolkit, we can use Class Dojo to communicate with parents and provide online incentives for our kids. We can take concrete actions that do not cost a lot of money to really have a positive school climate at our schools. We can start to have ADL affiliated, No Place for Hate, student-led organizations at each of our elementary, middle, and high schools to have kids advocate for their own anti-bullying initiatives. That works. We do that at my school, at Stewart K-8 school, and it really increases student engagement, and it's a really good tool to persuade the whole school to participate and to decrease bullying in real time. We also need to have more counselors and psychologists and nurses. How are we going to be preventative and not just reactive without having the staff that we need on campus? I was bullied when I was a child, and I know it's a cycle. It's a cycle that needs to be ended because whoever bullies has been bullied before, and we need to prevent that starting in our elementary schools.
Okay, a new question. And again, do we leave Madeline out? Forgive me, Madeline Cronenberg. Please.
This question is really important, and I think it really speaks to a classroom climate. I'm a big believer in every classroom having a true family climate, of every teacher understanding who's in that classroom and having the students feel safe. There are a lot of different programs you can use to do it. Restorative justice is one. You can circle up every day. You can do things where you check in with each of your students every day. But if students feel safe and feel that there's a safe place for them to be heard, then bullying doesn't happen because they're able to communicate their issues to each other in a way that there is support for them. And in addition, if there are problems beyond that, we have the additional support systems available in programs with psychologists and other kinds of providers who can step in. But the real issues with bullying need to be prevented, not responded to.
Has everyone had an opportunity to respond to that question? Thank you. We're going to move on to the next question. And again, 1 minute to respond. So, Mr. Carter, the question is as follows. Current American high school students spend an average 6 hours daily on electronic devices outside of school. In 1980, 60% of 12th graders read a newspaper or magazine for pleasure daily. New research shows this figure has dropped to 12%. 2017 SAT reading scores are the lowest recorded. More screen time appears to be associated with less than critical reading ability. West Contra Costa Unified School District heavily invested in educational technology for all students and is the largest district to provide all students a device. How will you lead the district in defining appropriate usage of technology? When is more screen time appropriate?
Screen time is appropriate where it needs to be appropriate. So my fiance over here is a teacher at Kennedy High School, and she teaches a digital arts class. Everything that they do is on screens. Nothing's on paper at all. She's never had to print anything out. In that instance, screen time is appropriate. You know, maybe in English class when you're reading Shakespeare, you know, maybe a book would be preferred. So to me, screen time really it's not an issue that we're using screens more because that's the way of the economy right now. If you want to be in a competitive job market, you're going to need to know how to use screens. What I feel that we need to do is we need to set limits to ensure that screen time needs to be used where it needs to be and not used where it doesn't need to be. So in LAUSD, which was where I was a student, we were part of the pilot program where iPads were implemented in all of our courses, all of them, English, math, science. They even tried to use them in PE. This did not work because screens aren't meant to be used all across the curriculum. So what I say we do is evaluate where is screen time most effective and where is it not, and then teach accordingly.
Thank you. Same question, Ms. Cuevas.
So I think it's interesting because I'm never going to accept that there's a student outcomes gap because kids are just spending too much time with screens. That's just part of what the 21st century is. And so if that's now part of the tools that we use, we've just got to figure out how do we use those mechanisms to help them learn. And that's about us and how we use them. There's a bunch of studies from Harvard right now about what the impact of the brain is in terms of too much screen time. And there can be some negative effects, particularly for very, very young children. And that's what we found is that it's better for young children to engage in those devices in groups. because they're then developing their brain in a way that lets them use that mechanism to help brain development. That kind of knowledge is how we can use screens to teach learning and accelerate learning in our schools. And at the same time know that the 21st century, the Jetsons are here, practically. We're just waiting for that self-automated car. Thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Could you repeat the last portion of that question?
How will you lead the district in defining appropriate usage of technology? When is more screen time appropriate?
I think screen time is appropriate as it relates to output, but we do need to insist that there is a policy within this district that students have an experience with books. Most recently, my son, who I have two sons in college, but one is at Harvard, and he's at Harvard Law, and he relayed this to me. He said, "Dad, I have spent too much time on screens, and I don't retain as well as when I actually physically hold a book and turn pages." I think it's very similar to the whole idea, the very first thing you learn in kindergarten is the ABCs in a song, because you're using both sides of the brain. So I think it's important that we establish a policy that limits screen time to get students kinetically involved, kinesthetically involved, as well as having the experience of actually touching the material that they're reading. I think there's significant brain research that suggests that retention is promoted by that.
Ms. Hernandez-Jarvis?
As a kinder teacher, I do integrate technology through the use of tablets, and it's mainly for reading interventions that are individualized and self-paced by the student. I think we need to have a strong and intentional purpose for using tablets and screen time at our schools and at home. We need to have it to share read-alongs that teachers can actually upload. For example, on a Padlet, we have a kinder teacher who shared that resource with all the teachers in the district. And so we can click on there, we can forward that to our parents, they can click on there, they can have their kid have screen time with actual read-alongs read by their teacher. So that's powerful, especially when we're talking about reading gaps in our students early on. We want to address them and we want to use the free tools that they can access at home online. I think that we also need to have more parent engagement and education on how to use valuable screen time at home and how to minimize the amount of time that students may have access to inappropriate or unuseful content online. Thank you.
Mr. DeJeJean?
Thank you, and thanks for the question. I think I support the district giving devices out to all students because too many students can't afford, or families can't afford it. So it becomes an equity issue, and I think it's great that we're able to address it in order to give everyone access. Now, that said, we don't want students on screens the whole time, and I, as a father, struggle with that at times, not only for my modeling behavior, but with my daughters wanting to be on screens the whole time. We need to have teachers model best practices around this and balance between what to do off screen, which is a lot, and then what to do on screen and using the tools appropriately. We also need to give parents a guide and communication to how they can best support students using the devices that are given at home and at school. And as I've said before, what we need to do on screen or off screen is make sure that all our students are reading. And if for some students, being on screen can engage them better and making them access content, then we need to make sure all students are reading anywhere.
Ms. Grimsley?
One of the tenets of the Common Core is multiple methods. And just as there are multiple ways to find the solution to a math problem, there are multiple ways to learn. And I think we need to utilize more of our methods of learning, and we can't rely solely on screen time, on the devices that are available to our children. My 6th grader is here with me tonight, and I've watched him. He brought a book and he brought a telephone, and he spent about the first 10 minutes with the book, and the rest of the time has been on the screen, on the phone. You know, it's entertaining and it's engaging, and there are ways to learn things through, you know, Googling things and reading things online, and even through some of the videos that he watches, he learns. But I want him to pick up a book and read it. I want him to know how to read a newspaper. I want him to be able to read things in print and in cursive writing. I want all of our students to have multiple ways, because in real life, they're going to have multiple ways of dealing with issues.
Mrs. DeVoe.
Well, technology is something that obviously has many useful purposes, but it's also something that can be misutilized, okay? So I think that there is a very clear line that should be observed when to use and when not to use technology, and how to use it and how not to use it. Technology is not and should not be used as a substitute for the creativity of the teacher, or as a substitute for the interaction among students. Okay? We are teachers, okay? Teaching. It is a human interaction. There is, of course, a place, and our students must be updated and able to use for their own education the latest technology available. But it should not be a substitute for the warm human interaction between the teacher and his students and among the students themselves. Knowledge is a social construction. Thank you.
Ms. Cronenberg.
Okay. Thank you, Dee. Screen time. Screen time, the issue is really the fact that student performance went down. Now, what went up was the engagement with the screen, because screen time means that our students have become very engaged because there are so many things available to them on those screens, including reading. I mean, we've got more and more people who are getting their newspaper on a screen and not delivered to their house. So I think the real issue here is we've closed the digital divide in this district by making sure we do have one-to-one. What we have to close then is making sure our teachers use the equipment that we've given them, the tablets that they have, use it to the best advantage, and use it to engage our students to increase their reading abilities, as well as to engage them just generally with the screen.
Ms. Block.
When is screen time appropriate? When it supplements and supports learning, not when it replaces it. How do we supplement learning with computers? By being able to write more on a computer, by being able to look things up on the internet that we can't look up, and we don't have the volumes of books to do it in the classroom. They're good for students who have special needs, students who can't talk without a computer, students who haven't really learned to read the curriculum level, the grade level materials, so they can supplement that with what they hear. But I was very much opposed to the one-on-one idea. I thought it was too much money, but I have read research that has convinced me that one-on-one initiatives are good because students who have computers do more research, they take more notes, and they do more writing than students who don't have computers. So we just need to harness the power behind the computer.
Ms. Calloway.
I believe balance is definitely necessary, as we know that our children learn in different methods. With my students that I'm currently working with, some English is their second language, and what I've noticed in working with them, the screen time is okay, but it's not as effective as when we sit in a circle and we read a book actually together, and their peers is cheering them on and encouraging them and helping them sound out words. And so the balance of it, yeah, screen time is fun, and it makes it not as a chore for them, but also having the tangible book in their hand and the support and the read out loud with it, I think is very important. So the balance of it, and knowing and teaching the parents of how to balance it at home, and having that connection, again, with the family and the school, so it's not a disconnect. So what we're doing at school, we can educate the parents on how to create that balance at home as well.
Thank you. Has everyone had an opportunity to respond to that question? Consuelo Lara.
There we go. Remember libraries? Remember encyclopedias and microfiche? To me, that's the best use of computers. Technology is a tool. And what disturbs me when I see it being used the way we used to use workbooks for drill and kill, just repetition. And so sometimes they can be misused. And I agree with Mr. Tabuada that, you know, nothing replaces the interaction with teachers, with cooperative learning groups. Students learn more from each other. But there is a definitely for technology, and we need to just know how to use it appropriately. Thank you.
Did we get everybody? Okay, moving on to the next question, which will deal with transparency balanced against the effectiveness of efficient use of staff time, etc. The West Contra Costa Unified School District is sparsely staffed at central office in comparison to other large California districts. Yet, the community is deeply engaged in its work. This creates many formal and informal requests for the district to make available large amounts of records and data, much of which has little actionable value for district decision makers. This board has even authorized an audit, consuming much staff time while adding little value to current operations. As we enter a season of budget cuts, how would you balance the community's right to know against the urgency of generating useful data for the classroom and operations? Mr. Tabuada.
Well, that's a complex question, you know, to balance the need for transparency and the need for the efficient use of staff time. I think that we are transparent enough as it is. One step that we need to be more transparent, I would suggest to have the decisions made by the board to be published on the website of the district in tabular form. And I think that we are caught up in this idea that we need to make decisions based on data. We've forgotten two things. That we need to have the correct pre-scientific attitude before we even approach the data, so we will know what data to collect. And also we should learn how to generate our own data. There are needs, there are programs, there are ambitions, there are things that need to be done for which there is no data. And we need to be able to generate that data. My time is running out.
Ms. Cronenberg?
This is a really interesting question. So the right to know versus urgency, community urgency. So the right to know, our community has the right to know, and transparency is absolutely critical for this school district and for any public agency. I think what happens is that we do have very many people who are interested in the details of our operations. And what we wind up not sharing with anyone is how much it costs us to be transparent. And that's a figure that is important for the public to know. So as we have public records requests and other kinds of requests for information by the public, it costs staff time to produce it. And I'm not sure that everybody really understands the economic impact of each request that's made. And so I think what we need to do, the balance needs to be transparent about the entire request and its implications for the rest of the budget.
Mr. Gonzalez.
I've lived here for 19 years in Richmond, but I heard about this district probably 40 years ago because of the problems of trust and transparency in this district. Trust is something that is earned over time and is easily broken with mistakes that have been made. So I think that the overwhelming of our district employees by people demanding information comes from that long history where people have been lied to, monies have been used inappropriately, and educational outcomes have been less than desirable. So I think that the first step in this whole process of transparency is acknowledging the fact that this is a district that has had some issues with public trust, and that the district, the board, starting with the board and the superintendent, have to work hard to earn that trust and thereby eliminate what might be called frivolous requests for public information.
Ms. Block.
Transparency. Why is it so important to people? Because people lack trust in the district. I think the district has earned that. Even when I've been on the board, we try really hard, but we need to be able to provide transparency, and I don't think it should be expensive. Look, if we calculate the numbers of students who apply for a transfer under the old No Child Left Behind law, which still exists, we should have that number. We shouldn't have to have somebody go out and look it up and figure it out. Those numbers are required by the state. So I think that this cry about transparency being so expensive might really lie in another place where we don't have the numbers that we need either. So if we could improve our systems and make sure that we're doing good record keeping, I think transparency will be easier.
Mr. Cotto?
So I've actually been one of the community members that distrusts the school district and has come up requesting data. So I've seen it from that side, and being up here, now having to look at it from the other side. To me, data is a tool. It's like walking in the dark and having a lamp. You know, the data would be that lamp. It shows you where you are. And without data, we don't really know which direction we're going with. So data being so important, I feel that in order to save staff time and staff money, we should create a staff position where their job is entirely to focus on data and handle all data requests. Now, the reason data is so important is because we need to know where we're at and we need to know where we're going. So, for example, earlier I mentioned that some of our high school students are able to receive a diploma from this district and not qualify to go to college. Now, I forget which high school it is specifically, but I looked at the data, and at one of the high schools, I believe it's Kennedy, only 35% of the graduates were qualified to go to college, based on the district's numbers. Now, without this data, and I told you only some students... Thank you.
Ms. Grimsley.
So I heard this question a little differently, I think. So I heard two parts. Sort of the authenticity of communication in terms of transparency, and then the volume of communication or the volume of data that's available to our community at large. And so for me, I think we're back to multiple methods and being creative about a variety of ways in which we can communicate information to the community at large. So one of the things that Vanessa Calloway spoke to earlier was about having town hall meetings and small group forums where information can be discussed and communicated and that feedback can be given, because it's a two-way street. It's like we want to receive information, and I am one of those nagging parents that's always trying to get information. But we can also give feedback and build upon what we already know and maybe come up with better ways, better solutions, better policies and procedures and ways of doing things that might increase efficiency.
Ms. Laura.
Yes, I think transparency is very important. The public and parents, everyone has the right to know how the district is working, how effective it is, how they're spending their money. I think all of those things are very important. And I think this is the perfect use of technology so that people can access the numbers that they are looking for. So the other thing I wonder about, what is the purpose of the data or the information that people want? And to me, if the purpose is not to increase student achievement, you know, it's not really a priority. But I do understand the importance of transparency, and I think it is something that we need to try to achieve.
Mr. DeJeJean.
So, you know, in that balance, I think we have to err on the side of providing more information to the public rather than less. And we need to be transparent to make sure that we build, gain, and maintain the trust of the community. I mean, this is an area where leveraging technology is part of an easy solution, where we can use technology to access the data and to make the data available. Looking at the district website as an example, it's really hard to get basic questions answered. Sometimes you have to go to different sites, you have to go to different partners or different groups that are tracking this. And it shouldn't be that difficult. As a parent, I should be able to look this up. As a community member, I should be able to look this up. So that's where technology, I think, is an easy solution to be able to do that. And then at a school level, I think we also need to have better process and better training for our school leaders to be able to communicate to the parent community on a regular basis using information and data and make it more transparent.
Ms. Hernandez-Jarvis.
So transparency is really a priority, I know, for parents, for community members, for school advocates, and we really need to know where funds are going for our kids. If we really want to prioritize kids, we need to know and have accountability about the funds that we have in the district. Like Patricia was saying, our website, our district website, is not intuitive. You have to know as an educator or an informed parent how to travel, how to navigate the website and really pull the resources that you want to find. It's not intuitive, and we need to make transparency something that parents and community members can access online using that tool. We also need to look at the way that we do the assessments of wasted funds. So how can we know what funds are being spent on unnecessary consultants or unnecessary services? And how can we use that to have formative assessments throughout the year, just like we do in the classrooms, to see where funds need to go? And I think that will increase accountability and public trust in the way that we handle our finances in the district. Thank you.
Ms. Cuevas?
So again, my name is Valerie Cuevas. I'm running for school board. You're going to get 3 choices to vote for. I ask that you make me one of them. Let me tell you one of the reasons why. In relation to this question, I really thought about it, and I had somebody come up with 10 reasons why you should vote for me. And I was like wondering why he put number 2. He said, she is proactive. An example of how I've been proactive around this question is if you go to our website right now and you look up West Contra Costa Unified School District Citizen Transparency Tool, I actually worked with Sherry Gamba to figure out how we leverage technology. So you could look up right down to easy to navigate graphics that can be used to search details of district expenses.
You know, we'd almost hit the buzzer on you on that because
and
we made
revenues by category, department, function, fund, school, site, and vendor around a key thing, which is how we spend our money. So I'm excited because the issue is it was a balance. Because I firmly believe information, public information, we have a law that says Public Records Act. Means anybody can ask for it. But we got to figure out how to deliver it.
And just a reminder to our panel, we made an announcement early on before we started that no electronic devices are to be used during the forum. So I'd appreciate if you would adhere to that. Ms. Calloway.
I believe in the urgency of the transparency for it. As going out and talking to the community, they don't know a lot of things. There's a great disconnect within our district. And so in doing better, I believe that we should build relationships with some of our nonprofits that's really eager to get in and to help and have them come in and volunteer in various ways of outreach and connecting with our parents so that the information can get out. So Mr. Gonzalez said something earlier about acknowledgement. We have to acknowledge that we need help. And there's an old saying that it takes a village to raise a child. Well, this is part of raising our children by informing our parents and our community of what's going on, how the dollars are being spent, and where the need is. And so if we engage those nonprofits that's willing to come in and volunteer some of their services and time, we can save money in that capacity as well as build relationships, and the information is getting out to the community and to the families.
Thank you. Has everyone had an opportunity to respond to that question? Okay, moving on to another question. We know you're in the role of a school district trustee. You're charged with that fiduciary responsibility, and you have to make prudent financial decisions. You have to deal with teachers' unions, various unions, and just all manner of financial decisions. So this question is centered somewhat around that area. The West Contra Costa Unified School District and UTR, United Teachers of Richmond, recently entered a multi-year contract granting large raises while district revenues are flat. Other bargaining units are likely to seek comparable raises. Education research shows little correlation between increased employee compensation and improved academic outcomes. On the contrary, the raises will necessitate cuts to helpful programs like community school partners, arts and sports programs. The trustees' role for the next 2 years will be to make sizable cuts to district operations. What cuts will have the least negative effect on students, and why are you the right candidate to undertake this difficult work? Why are you, Stephanie Hernandez-Jarvis?
So at my school side, I really have the perspective of knowing what we actually use, what furniture we use, what academic learning technologies we use, what we actually put into place in our classrooms, and what's stored away in sheds and just, collecting dust in closets. So I think that we really need to do an inventory and see what we have that we can pass on to other school sites that may need it. That's the way to really have a small but important impact with our resources in the classrooms. We also need to look at the way that we use funds for consultant services and cut things that are not necessary for students to achieve educational success. We need to look at the ways that we're spending funds in unnecessary services and unnecessary positions that may serve a purpose for now, but may not serve a purpose in a few years. We need to really look at the way that we can have partnerships with organizations to support our classrooms and not have to spend more funds while we're trying to balance a budget and teacher raise. Thank you.
Same question, Mr. Gonzalez.
As I mentioned in my opening remarks, I was an exceptional educational researcher, and I also mentioned that we need to examine and audit our instructional system. What I need to point out now, and what speaks to this question, is when you audit your instructional system, you come up with a priority list in terms of spending. There are 8 major categories, and spending is along a continuum from the first thing that's the most important to the second on to the 8th. Therefore, if you go through a collective process that looks at your instructional system, you actually come up with a plan on how to spend your money. And it's not a secret plan, it's completely transparent, it's not arbitrary, nor is it political.
Ms. Calloway?
I believe in what Ms. Stephanie said in regards to inventory. I believe in, that we have to stop outsourcing our problem and begin to invest within our district itself. In doing that, we'll save money, and some of the cuts wouldn't have to be necessary. We're spending a lot of money on outside consultants, and I think if we weren't doing that, some of the things that you mentioned that were being cut wouldn't have to necessarily be cut. And so I think that we just need to look at the whole budget as a whole, and not just as a board, but with the community input as well. If we're going to be transparent, we need to hear what the community wants, and we need to hear what they feel is necessary to be cut and not cut. And because at the bottom line, it's their children and it's our future that we're impacting. And so if we're giving teacher raises, but we're taking tools from them, are we really helping?
Your thoughts, Mr. DeJeJean?
This is a great question. And, I support the bargaining that the district and the unions came to because we need to keep our teachers. And I think going from one of the lowest districts in compensation for teachers to hire one of the highest ones in the region goes a long way. We've been hiring 200 plus teachers a year, and that means that too many times we have inexperienced teachers in the classroom, or in some cases, no teacher in the classroom to start the year. So we need to really address that. So I support that decision. As far as how to fund it, I would look at a return on instructional investment. Any dollar that is spent, there has to be a return on instructional investment. And I think that the key is what's working for our students and what's working for our most needy students, our students of poverty, our African American and Latino students. And like I said before, the top priority for me is reading. So what are the interventions and the supports to get students reading in order to lift academic achievement?
Ms. Cronenberg.
Thank you. So we gave the raise, and it was very important to do it. And it was important to do it because we need to keep our teachers. We can't be the district where people come to practice their first year and then go off to make more money other places. We needed to become the district where people transfer in, because this is the district where they can have their career as an educator. And we did that. So part of what's going to happen as a result of that is we're going to grow our teaching force, and we're not going to need the money that you have to invest to support everybody being a first-year teacher, because our teachers themselves are going to be more talented and more experienced. But we are going to need to cut other things, and we need to cut as far away from the classroom as possible. As many of the consultants, growing our own consultants, just like we need to grow our own teachers, we need to grow our own experts. The more we're able to grow and own the expertise, the more we're going to be able to grow the success of our district.
Ms. Grimsley.
This is probably the part of the job that I would like the least. Be complete transparency there. Cost-benefit analysis. But when we're talking about human beings, and especially children and things that benefit children, how do you qualify and quantify benefit? So I think that's what we'd be looking at, and how we define what is a benefit and what is showing to be the least benefit to our educational community within the district. It's what we have to do. I spent a brief time as a budget manager at the University of California in the School of Public Health, and it has 6 departments and then professors under those departments. And I had to define, to prioritize, and then explain to professors why their program wasn't the priority. And it was just as agonizing as I think this would be.
Ms. Cuevas.
So if there's one thing all the candidates talked about, it was the role of teachers and how important they are. Don't let technology replace teachers. Make sure we have teachers helping to teach social emotional learning. And most importantly, teachers are in their classroom for the magic that happens, the learning process. That's my priority. I'm clear about that. And I'm unapologetic about making sure that we pay our teachers the support that they need to stay in our classrooms. So that's my North Star. Everything far from that is about how it's supporting that process. I know there's lots of conversation about consulting fees, and depending on who you ask, some people say you just said we have too little district staff. I hear people who still say you have so much. So for me, that's okay to hear everybody's opinion, but I know what my North Star is, and that is the most important thing that happens in the classroom. The majority of our budget goes to staffing for teachers, and I will continue to support that, and I will make those decisions.
Mrs. DeBolden.
Well, it is true, we do have a fiduciary responsibility, and this latest bargaining agreement posed some serious questions. Yes, we got a very healthy and needed salary for our teachers, but we also handicap the long-term future of our teachers by depriving them of retirement medical benefits. So I agree, for this question, I agree with my colleague, Ms. Cronenberg. we need to make our cuts as far away from the classroom as possible and realize that we are spending a great deal of money on consultants and there are many unnecessary staff that are paid 3 or 4 times the salary of a first-year teacher. I think we need to take a harder, closer look at our spending, unnecessary spending on staff and consultants. Thank you.
Ms. Block, followed by Ms. Lara.
We need to prioritize our spending on people who actually come into contact with students every day. If you don't teach, counsel, do your duty, if you are not working directly with students, I think you should be looking over your shoulder for the budget cuts to come. We've got to cut our budget because we have put money into salaries that we really wanted to put into, but we are going to have to make the cuts. So we could cut our contracts, we could cut waste on materials. I can't even tell you, I've been in schools where there are things that haven't even been unwrapped yet. Let's not say, well, somebody else has paid for it, so why not get it? We have to be smart and we have to spend on people who work with kids.
Ms. Lara.
California is the 5th highest economy in the world. I get so sick of hearing that, and we are the lowest when it comes to funding for our children. It's disgusting. So we're having this conversation because we're not funded the way we need to be from our state and federal resources. So where do we cut? Well, there are millions of dollars that are going to corporate-run charter schools. There's some source right there. And I agree, the cuts need to be made as far away from the classroom as possible. That's it.
Mr. Cotto, did you speak on this? Speak on it, please.
I 100% agree with Mr. Gonzalez. We need to do a needs assessment of what our priorities are, fund those first, and then we can start making cuts from there. Now, just to paint a picture of what kind of consultants we're spending money on, I was at a DLCAT meeting, and a consultant was literally paid to go, oh, you're done speaking? Okay, let me grab this mic and let me hand this over here. Oh, you're done speaking? Let me hand this mic and hand it over here. We paid somebody to do that. That's money that could have gone to the classroom. So, I'm a big fan of small solutions that have big impacts. A lot of parents have been saying, we need to update our websites, we need better websites. The communications department here is only 3 or 4 people. Why don't we have student interns working on updating these websites? You know, instead of spending money on consultants to come do teacher trainings, why not send a few teachers to go to the training, come back and train other teachers? We need to start focusing on small solutions that have big impacts, and that way we can save millions of dollars and put the money back in the classroom where it needs to go, and we can start lowering our class sizes, we can start funding more after-school programs, and we can start funding more resources for our students. Thank you.
Has everybody spoken on that? You've all had your opportunity to say your piece on that. Well, we're at 7:35 now, and this event runs from 6 to 8 o'clock. So at this time, we're going to move into the 2-minute closing statements. 2-minute closing statements. So I'm going to start at my far left with Liz Block. 2-minute closing statements.
It's clear that all the candidates care about students and want to improve schools. But I'm unique in this group because of my 35 years working in public schools, together with my 4 years of experience on the board. I've been a school psychologist for 18 years, a special education administrator for 7 years, a principal for 6 years, and on the board for 4 years. I know how to improve schools because I've done it. I was principal of one of the lowest performing schools at Bay Point, and with the help of a dedicated staff, we managed to raise our API 61 points in 1 year by looking at the kids differently, teaching the adults to think about the kids differently. That was the magic that we did. And then we gave them what they needed to improve students' education by working with groups of kids who are below grade level on strategic teaching of specifically for their deficits. I came on this school board 4 years ago to improve academic outcomes and school climate for our students, and that is what we are doing. This past 4 years has been a time of great progress. We haven't seen a lot of results, but we've turned a big ship around and we are starting to move in the right direction. This is no time to make changes on the board. We cannot afford to lose our momentum. The best way to continue to make progress is to return Liz Block to the board. Please vote for me. Thank you.
And we'll just move the mic down in a straight line. Ms. Jarvis.
So, again, my name is Stephanie Hernandez-Jarvis, and I come here today to ask for your vote on November 6th. As a public school teacher, as a mother, as an immigrant, as a first-generation college and high school graduate, I come here to ask you for your vote because I really want to put our kids first in the district. I don't take anything for granted, so your support counts. It really, really makes a difference, and I think I can have a great impact on our school board. As a classroom teacher, I know what it means to sit with kids, to teach them how to write their ABCs, their names, how to count, how to have presentations at an early age. We're about to do our October presentations, and they're an opportunity for our kids to really show who they are, their family tree, and talk about what their life is like and share it and be part of what we value and appreciate and celebrate in our classroom. So I'm there every day, I'm teaching, I'm caring about the kids, I'm talking with my principal about what we need to do at our next meeting for our student success team, what we need to do for early interventions for our kids that are struggling to have a positive academic and educational learning experience early on. So when I talk about things that matter in the classroom, it's because I'm living them. I'm there at the moment. Tomorrow I'm going to be there first thing in the morning, talking with parents, talking with kids, and I'm here because I care about the kids. I have a daughter who's going to spend at least, more than a decade of her life in public schools, just like I did. And I had teachers who cared about me on the personal and professional level, and they pushed me to read. In Spanish, there's a saying that says, leer es poder, reading is power, and I believe that we need to support our kids to become young readers and to really value books, to know that there's so much to learn through books and to open their minds. Even if they're facing trauma, a book can really provide an opportunity to think and to aspire for greatness. So my name is Stephanie Hernandez-Jarvis, and I humbly ask for your vote on November 6th. Thank you.
Good evening again, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event, for everyone being here. My name is Patricio DeJeJean, and I ask for your vote on November 6th. The focus that I'll bring is different perspective to the school board. I'm a father with 2 daughters in public school right now, 1st grade and 6th grade, and I'm very invested in making sure that not only they, but all students have a great experience in education across West Contra Costa. I'm a former teacher, taught in middle school and elementary school in low-income, high-need schools, so I understand many of the different challenges that our teachers and our administrators are facing. I'm a Latino immigrant, and I bring that perspective to the board to be able to connect with the community and bring different voices and different perspectives to the problems that we face. And I'm an education leader. I've dedicated my life and my career to education, working with districts across the country around. I want to bring that expertise to West Contra Costa. We're failing our students right now. Our district data shows 70% of students are not reading on grade level. 70% of our English language learners are not reclassified. So they're staying in English language learner classes, not reading and not progressing. And we need to make some serious decisions and some serious changes in the coming time frame, in the coming 2 years, to really accelerate that and to focus on what matters in the classroom, what matters with students and what matters for families. And that will be my guiding star, my North Star, as I think about working on the board and working to improve educational outcomes for all students. So I humbly ask for your support and your vote on November 6th. You can find out more. My website is www.patricio4kids.com. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you to the League. Thank you especially to Mr. Wright for reading these very complicated questions we had this evening, and to Ms. Roberson and Ms. Carpenter and Mrs. Wright. I'm Madeline Cronenberg. I've been on the board since 2006. I've been in this community as a parent leader much earlier than that, since the 80s. And I'm asking you to keep me on the board. And I'm asking because during the entire time I've served and been involved in this district, we have improved. We have gone up. The trajectory didn't just start going up 2 years ago or 4 years ago. We have always been going up. The problem is we've started with so many issues and so many barriers and so many struggles against us. But now we are moving forward. We're going to be able to keep our teachers, and that's been the big issue for us for many years. We're going to be able to grow our own teaching force. My 3 issues in this campaign are to increase student achievement by growing our own teaching force, having our teaching academy, having people believe in becoming teachers here, closing the achievement gap by honestly looking at putting together a stronger group of community schools where we give our students the opportunity to have additional supports in all of our schools, and building safe environments in each of our classrooms, making sure that our schools are strong and safe physically, but also they're strong and safe emotionally. As a teacher, I taught adult education for 30 years, and I learned how to do that in Hayward, a district very similar to the one that we're in. And it's from that experience that I ask you to vote for me one more time, and check it out at MadelineCronenberg.com.
I'll use this. Okay, there's a program in Richmond High called Community in Schools that has 100% of the students in that program graduate from high school. We are not a failing district. 80 to 95% of them get accepted into college. We are not a failing district. 80 to 90% of them, 100% actually attend. We're not a failing district. So how do they do this? How do they achieve this? They give them counseling, they give them application assistance, college tours, scholarships, mentoring, community service, tutoring, test prep, and middle college outreach. We know how to do this because we are doing this already, but it is not being duplicated and it needs to be supported much more strongly. We are not a failing district. And anybody who says that does not know this district at all. Please vote for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Carlos Taboada, like I said earlier, and I have been a teacher and a counselor in our district for 21 years. I feel that I am heavily vested in this district. One of my sons attended our schools, and my grandson very soon will attend one of our kindergartens. So I am strongly motivated to have a quality education available to all of our students. On one of my window signs that I had made, I wrote, public education matters. Because I think it matters, because it is public. I think public education matters as long as we maintain a democratically controlled system of public education. That's why we are here, right? This is a candidate forum to elect the members, the governing board of our school district. This would be an impossibility in any of the 14 charter schools in our district currently. They don't have elections for the school board. They're publicly financed, but they are privately run. And they're publicly financed to the tune, by my own estimate in our district, of $25 to $30 million a year. That's the money that we are having to do without, because we're having to put up with this imposition. It is an imposition, it is legal, but when the law is unfair, when the law is unjust, men and women of conscience, teachers of conscience, must stand up to it and challenge it and protest it. I humbly ask for your vote this November 6th to keep our district moving forward. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Anthony Caro, and I'm not asking for your vote. I need your vote. For the past few years, I've mentioned before, I've been attending almost every single school board meeting. And when I attend these school board meetings, I'm not just sitting in the back. Some of them I am, but most of them, I'm up giving public comment and fighting for policy. When the school district passed a resolution to protect our undocumented students, I was up a few meetings later saying, where's the plan? Yes, we're going to protect our students, but how? I advocated for that policy. When the district was going to pass a positive school climate resolution, I was there advocating for the proper implementation of it. When the school district was debating on whether they wanted to increase or decrease the amount of school resource officers, I was there in that argument as well. So I've been here, I've been arguing for these policies, and the reason why I'm running is because I don't see anybody else on that board that's actually out here listening to the community and saying, what do you need and what could we do better? And that's who I want to be up there. Throughout my campaign, I've been door-to-door knocking. Well, part of the reason is because I don't have major funders funding me. I don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars pouring in. And in that experience, I've met a lot of friends that I've met throughout the past few years, and I've made a lot of new friends. And what they've been sharing with me is the reasons that the different policies and the suggestions that they have for the school board. So my policy and suggestions are not about me, they don't come from my mind, they come from others. I've been doing research into what other school districts have done, into what other school site council meetings have done across the country. And well, some states don't even have school site council meetings, but that's a whole other issue. But the point is, I've been learning what it is that we could be doing better. I don't think that we're failing, but I don't think that we're 100% where we need to be. So a vote for me is a vote for moving forward, it's a vote for change, it's a vote for listening, it's a vote for community, and it's a vote for an advocate. I want to be on that board to advocate for you, and that's why I need your vote. Thank you.
When I grow up, I want to be just like Anthony. The other thing is I want to vote for Mr. Wright to moderate all future forums until he just drops. The energy you brought has, I think, enlivened this forum. What you don't know, you often don't know that you don't know. And what you don't know that you don't know hurts you in ways in which you're unaware of. I've talked about the fact that this district has avoided looking at its instructional system, and as a result has in place, or doesn't have in place, policies that are hurting this district. No, it's not failing, it's just incoherent. Here's an example of only one of the things that emerged from the audit of your instructional system that I'm talking about. There should be no interruptions by the administration of instruction. Districts that turn around that look like this district do not allow interruption of instruction by the administrators. Today, I'm in 4 different district schools. In all 4 of those schools, there were a minimum of 5 administrative interruptions to let people know things as important as tomorrow is crazy hair day, or if you have pajamas that match a Halloween theme, remember Halloween is coming up, or other things that had to do with McDonald's and French fries, but people were interrupting as an administrator of instruction. And what the research tells us is not just your 2-minute interruption. It's not just your cleverly devised song that you sing every morning, but that interruption disrupts 15 minutes of instruction every day. And if you just multiply the number 4 by the number 182 school days, you get the number of hours we're missing. We don't know that in this district, so we do it, and then we wonder why we get the results we get.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters. Thank you to the panel. Thank you for everyone who came out this evening. This is such an interesting group of people. And I think we all have demonstrated that we have value to add to the board. And so this is going to be an interesting election. My name is Tiffany Grimsley. If you'd like to know more about me, you can go to my website at tiffanygrimsley.co, or you can reach out to me directly at tiffanygrimsley@tiffanygrimsley.co. As a parent in the district, as a product of the district, as a former admissions officer, and an invested community member, I think I have a lot of things to bring to the board, perspectives that I think are valuable, as I think we all do. One of the things that I look forward to bringing to the board is the perspective of someone who's been on the other side of it from a college admissions perspective and looking back down the pipeline. I'd really like to see us build a pipeline that starts at pre-K and takes us into college level learning. I agree that we need to prepare our kids not only for college or university learning, but for life learning, for job skills, job preparation, things like how to interview for a position, how to communicate effectively, how to engage with other members of community that may not look like you or come from where you come from. I think we need to provide support and resources for students and for teachers. Teachers who are working hard every day, coming out of pocket, providing for their resources. They need a lot of assistance from our community. And so the other thing I want to work on is community building, developing more collaboration and cooperation among all the community partners within our educational environment. That includes students, that includes teachers, administrators, parents, and concerned citizens. My time is almost up, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you all. Thank you to the Women League voters for hosting the last 3 of our forums. And I second what Mr. Gonzalez says about Mr. Wright. You were awesome, awesome, awesome. And so, again, thank you to all the community members that came out to listen to what we all had to say. My name is Vanessa Calloway, and I am a champion for students, I'm a champion for families, and I'm a champion for employees. And I recognize that without those 3 categories, we wouldn't have a district. I've been an unclassified employee within West Contra Costa Unified School District, and I understand the struggle that sometimes accompanies being that employee. I've been on both sides of the debate as an employee and as a resident, and most often those who we represent are often overlooked, and that's our students and our teachers. I have a love and compassion and the wherewithal to work collaboratively with other board members to assure that we give the best opportunities and the best education possible to our families as well as our teachers, to assure that we give the best opportunity and the best education possible to our families, as well as to assure that our teachers are supported and given the proper tools to nurture and educate each student that come into their classroom. I would love to be chosen to represent such a great group of community members. Please remember Vanessa A. Calloway, November 6th. I want each of you not only to feel empowered, but to be empowered. I don't just want to hear your voice. I'm ready to work with you and for you. You have a voice that matters. I can be reached at 510-827-9859 or by email, vanessafореducation@gmail.com. Remember me, November 6th. Thank you.
We get to use this mic tonight. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for inviting me, and I apologize I have a full-time job, so I hit some traffic on the way in, and I didn't get here at the beginning to hear about no devices, so I apologize for that. But I do want to say, as your school board president, again, my name is Valerie Cuevas. I've been serving on this board for 4 years. It was the first time I ran, and the last 4 years, this has been not about me wanting to be a career politician, about me wanting to have my way, about me thinking I know all the answers. This has been about one thing, and that's kids. How do we serve kids well? How do we serve your kids well? How do we serve other people's kids well? How do we serve the neighbors' kids well? How do we serve kids who live in El Cerrito well? How do we serve kids in Panola? How do we serve kids in Hercules? How do we serve kids in the Iron Triangle? How do we serve kids in the Marina? How do we serve kids in El Sobrante? How do we serve kids well? That's what my motivation and the only factor. And I've asked myself, do I have the capacity to lead us through those questions? Because that's what being a school board member is about. It's not just about coming up with the ideas, but then are you effective and efficient and able to bring people together to focus on that one question? I have no children. My wife and I don't have children, so I get to proudly say I have 30,000 kids. They're all our kids. And I've used this opportunity to use my genuine good listening skills to be proactive about the tough questions. How are you going to spend the limited money that you're going to have? How are you going to encourage more people to put more money? How are you going to focus on what matters most? People in the classroom. How are you going to make sure that our kids feel safe? How are you going to make sure that somebody brings a gun, that everybody's safe? There's so many modern problems that affect what it means to be school board that you need to pick the right person. And you're going to get 3 choices. And I ask you to make me one of them. Again, Valerie Cuevas, you get 3 choices. Please make Valerie Cuevas one of your choices. Because I've bared everything to you about what my motivation is for being here. And I thank you for your time, and I humbly ask for your continued support. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.
As your moderator this evening, I want to personally thank each of you candidates for taking the time to come out tonight to participate in this candidates forum. I also want to thank you for your thoughtful responses to the questions, and I know many of them were somewhat difficult and took on a vast array of complex issues. So again, thank you all for coming, and thank you for your thoughtful replies to the questions. To our audience, I want to thank each of you for coming out tonight and for being so attentive. As members of the community, it's good to see you out and participating in democracy. I'd also like to thank Joan Carpenter on behalf of the League of Women Voters, and I certainly want to thank Bea Roberson for her exceptional job as timer tonight. So ladies and gentlemen, if we were an airline tonight, we would be on time. Mrs. Wright, thank you for coming out tonight as a member of the League of Women Voters and for assisting me also. So ladies and gentlemen, we have landed. We can deplane now. It's over.